At least 3 people are dead after violence erupted during today's rerun of Kenya's disputed presidential election. In several counties, the opposition supporters clashed with police, forcing authorities to postpone the voting. Some polling stations didn't open at all because of the unrest, but others did turn out. Kenya's Supreme Court nullified the August election because it found what it called irregularities and illegalities. The first time a court in Africa had overturned a presidential vote. Joining me from Washington for his assessment of the Kenyan election, John Campbell. He's the Senior Fellow for Africa Policy Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations and a former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria. Welcome to you, John.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Okay, just as a point of background, going into this election, we've already identified the fact that many people are staying home, but this was at the advice of the main opposition leader. We advise Kenyans who value democracy and justice to hold vigilance, prayers, or stay at home. What do you think was behind that, and did people listen?
Well, clearly the supporters of Raila Odinga are indeed following that advice. Odinga himself wanted the elections postponed for another 30, 60, or 90 days. And when that did not happen, he in effect said the elections could not be fair and credible, and that therefore he would not contest them. And he urged his supporters not to participate.
Okay, he said he wanted reforms. What kind of reforms does he want, and why didn't he get them?
Essentially, the most important of the reforms that he has asked for has been a wholesale house cleaning of the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission. At one time or another, he's called for all of the principals to be fired. He has also objected to the way tallies have been transmitted into central counting areas, and he wanted that reformed as well. Now, as to why those reforms did not take place, the more technical ones probably could have been if the elections had been postponed for a certain period of time. Wholesale replacement of the Electoral Commission is something that is much more difficult and would have also been much more controversial.
Yeah, he claimed hackers infiltrated the database of the electoral body to manipulate the vote. Regardless of whether you believe the outcome or not, he received 45% of the last vote in August, and the current president received 54%. Uhuru Kenyatta received 54%. Is this division in the country, almost evenly split in the country, what is the impact of that on Kenya?
The impact could be fairly serious. Kenyatta is a Kikuyu. Odinga is a Luo. In other words, in addition to being political figures, and each of them is also extremely wealthy, they are also the leaders of important ethnic groups. The Kikuyu are the largest. The Luo are probably the third largest. Now, there are 20 different ethnic groups in Kenya, and politics often involves the making of alliances amongst various ethnic groups. My concern, and the concern of many other friends of Kenya, is that this disputed election will turn into or morph into an ethnically based conflict. That has happened before, most recently in 2007, and the results can be extremely bloody. At least 1,000 people were killed in 2007. So it's worrisome.
Is there any indication that either or both men are willing to let it come to that?
I would put it a bit differently. I keep looking for an indication that both of them would take active steps to prevent it from coming to that. And that, thus far, has been really quite disappointing.
Okay. What are the implications for outside of the area?
They could be significant. Kenya is the economic powerhouse of that part of East Africa. It's a major banking center. It also has important ports that feed Uganda, for example. If in fact there is widespread unrest in Kenya, if transport links are broken and so forth, then the economic impact would spread beyond the country.
Okay. What about a security issue?
Well, Kenya is a staunch ally in the war against terrorism. Kenya has also been a victim of terrorism. I suppose the best known examples are the bombing of the American embassy in Nairobi, and then really only about 3 years ago, the bombing of the Westgate shopping center in Nairobi. So terrorism is a kind of constant concern. The elections, an interesting thing about the elections and the campaign is that they have been conducted largely without reference to terrorism. In other words, the campaign essentially has been about the rivalry between two individuals, not particularly about policy.
Not about policy.
Not about policy,
okay.
No.
So what does that tell you?
Oh, what it tells you is that politics in Kenya, at least presidential politics, are a matter of personality rather than policy. They are matters of ethnic identity rather than, at present, a larger vision of what a united Kenya can look like.
All right. John Campbell, Senior Fellow for Africa Policy Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations and a former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you.